Hello, hello. We're back with password. And I am also back with not having my mouse pad next to me. Damn it. Oh, it's like just out of arm's reach. I can't believe I have to get up. Uh, you would think I would learn by now. What are we, like 20 parts in? I still can't do that. Look, I am not a quick learner. Clearly, like with how my vocabulary, clearly. I don't even fucking know. I don't even remember what just happened. Like I remember was the last thing that happened just the silly conversation with Oswin with the injection and stuff. Yeah, that was fun. There was a familiar floating sensation that I was very quickly getting used to, and I didn't like it. Let me adjust my microphone real quick. Okay. Almost before I could hear it, and for sure before I could see anything, I knew where I'd end up. I'd end up. Sitting on my bed felt off, but maybe because I was fairly certain that this was just a dream. After all, with everything going on, there's no way that I had it backwards. I made my way downstairs, wondering why I was thinking of home so much. I missed it, sure, more so with everything else going on too. Dad? No response. A blessing in disguise, I felt relieved, if a little. Still, what relief was soon replaced with loneliness, knowing that the one person I wanted to be around, that I could turn to for advice, was long gone. Not only that, but I'd given myself the impression that I'd pushed everyone away in trying to cope with my problems, only to make more instead. Poor Tyson. He was struggling with as much as I was. But he was always the one between the two of us that was. He was always the one between the two of us that was stronger, or at least more protective. Maybe it was a wolf thing. What I remembered of him and Dad interacting, though, maybe he was just trying to copy how to be a good person, or maybe it was something else entirely. I looked out the front yard, most of it a haze and a blur of color, instead of what was actually there. A letterbox was the most distinct thing out there, having spent most days leaning on it, waiting for Dad to come home. Dad? I spoke to no one in particular, half expecting him to be around or to just show up, but everything was quiet. Looking around the living room again, I took stock of everything that held some sort of fond memory. The anchor sitting against the wall that... There's an anchor? What? Why? Okay. Man, I'm just going in circles, aren't I? Against the wall that Dad bought. Mom's dilemma hanging proudly on... diploma, not diagram. What am I thinking? I don't know. Hanging proudly on the wall. A couple of painted rocks sitting to the bookcase that I'd put there for decoration. These were things that were put there as a family, each with a story that made me smile. But now, thinking about how Dad was gone and Mom was working so much, it was just lonely. Mom? Much like before, there was no reply. She wasn't around either, but that was something that wasn't too new. When Dad died, she lost a lot of her edge, coming home mostly to sleep only to disappear back at work. I can't remember the last time we ate a meal together, even living in the same house. But that's the void that Tyson filled, or maybe I just forced him into that role. Maybe he didn't mind, or maybe he did. I never thought to ask. He said he missed my dad as well, and no wonder given how often he'd be around and be asking for advice on stuff. I wondered if I should have been paying more attention on what advice he was getting, because I felt lacking now more than ever. I found myself in the kitchen, just as empty as the rest of the house. I would have said that having Tyson around might have been fine, but even he was planning on leaving. Maybe I should leave too, or ask if I should just follow, just so I wasn't left behind. I felt cold, deflated, and before I knew it, I was waking up. Ugh. It was early enough that I'd only been down for a couple hours. My mind was racing with everything that had happened. I checked my phone, and it was still charging, but even that held little comfort in me. Sitting up in my bed, I whined. Hanging my head, I was tired, but not sleepy. Maybe, let me move my microphone real quick. Yeah. Maybe I needed a warm glass of milk, or a walk or something. The house was quiet, hands in my, and the pocket of my hoodie as I descended to the foyer. The tiles were cool and soothe on my feet, making me flinch the moment I touched down, but something else caught my attention instead. The sound of someone upset. Right, Oswin said he was going to, reveal himself to everyone, didn't he? I edged closer to the dining room, easing the door further open than it already was to peer inside. Oh, well, that's the wrong pig. Roswell was pacing around the length of the table, arms folded and mumbling something to himself. He sounded more distressed than anything else, and didn't hear me as I approached. Roswell? Slowly, almost carefully, he straightened and looked to me with his eyes glistening wet in what little light was in the room. Hey, Dave, can't sleep? I nodded, and he nodded along with me, averting his gaze and rubbing his arms. There's been a lot going on. You can say that again. Listen, Roswell, you know ghost stuff, right? Yeah, why? I fiddled with my hands while they sat in the pocket of my hoodie, unsure of how best to ask. Is dying scary? Does it hurt? I don't know. You don't know any magic that would... I shut my eyes tight as I trembled, a feeble whine escaping my clenched jaw. He reached out and touched my arm, flashing me a weak smile. So that's why you weren't at dinner. Orlando was sketchy on the details when he went to check on you. I didn't really tell him anything. His voice was quiet and calm, and he eased back to pull out a chair. Sit down. I'm going to make you some tea. I grimaced, only to have Roswell lean in a little closer. Fine, coffee, but only if there's decaf. All right. Roswell flashed me one last smile before disappearing into the kitchen as I sat down. Once I was quiet, and I found myself sitting there with an empty head. Before I knew it, Roswell was coming back from the kitchen and setting something down in front of me. Roswell, but this is... No decaf, but I thought this might help. I looked down at the sugary drink, chocolatey and creamy. I cupped the mug and used it to warm my hands. But what's up? I shook my head, stared at the drink in front of me as Roswell pulled up a chair beside me. I upset Tyson today. Roswell fidgeted next to me, but kept quiet. He misses my dad too, and I don't know, I feel so confused. So, the ghost thing. Dad would know what to do. What I wouldn't give to see him again and ask him something. I flinched as I said it, immediately thinking back to the dreams I'd been having, and how lacking they felt compared to the real thing. I think that's to be expected. I don't want to pretend to know what it's like to be in your shoes, Dave, but I don't think there's, well... He scratched his chin before resting his head on the table. He seemed off at dinner. Even Hostig couldn't get him to talk about anything. But he pulled Dean aside for a bit and didn't come back, though. Oh. Roswell pulled out his phone, placing it on the table. I'm not sure if this would help, but I can try. Sure. He turned on his phone and flicked through some photos before settling on one and leaving the photo in clear view of the table. Haas, Orlando, Roswell, and I were all dressed up in costumes for a thing Haas put together. We were all smiling, and I remember the day well. I remember working hard on my costume for ages, and we all looked good. It was a day that I remembered being happy. When I look at this picture, I think of my friends. I think of people that made my life happy, even if we might not get to see each other every day. He scratched his head and sighed out, staying quiet as he leaned back in the chair. I guess what I'm trying to say is that these people in this photo, these are only some of the people that I have. These are only some of the people that have your best interest at heart. We're here for you if you want it. His tone was hollow, and I didn't even think to hide it. Instead, I just drank from the cup of cocoa that Roswell had given to me. But when I did, things felt a little better. The way the sweetness played on my tongue lifted my spirits, if only a little. There is no easy solution, Dave, but please don't forget you've got us, right? Okay. I sat the empty mug in front of me and got up, suddenly exhausted. Sleep well, Dave. Yeah. When I snuck a look at Roswell, he flashed me a smile, if fleeting, as he was taking my mug into the kitchen. Cleaning up after myself wasn't a priority, but I was tired enough that I just wanted to try and sleep. Let whatever happens happen. That'd be fine, right? I had backup if it got too bad, so I could just stop, right? Those were the thoughts I fell asleep to as quickly as it happened when I got back to bed. The others were inside still, assembling for breakfast. I got some sleep, but it didn't seem to do any good. I leaned against the railing on the back deck, just looking out to the world and wondering just where things left me. Would it have just been better if I stayed at home? Sal? What? That's different. That's not who I expected. Where's my boy Tyson? No, Sal's good too. He's a good boy. I heard the back door open, followed by Sal's heavy footsteps. Good morning. Hey, Sal. He drummed his finger against the railing as he watched me carefully, silent beyond that greeting. What's wrong? Nothing on my end, but what about you? I sighed, looking back at the trees briefly while I thought over how best to answer. I think I'm just ready to go home. So soon? That would make sense, all things considered. You're talking about what came up at dinner? He nods slowly, looking out to the trees much in the same way I did. We're all worried about you. I'll be fine. And you're sure? Maybe. Well, okay. He pulled away from the railing before stopping short. What are you planning to do today? Dunno. If Oswin was going to keep his word, he'd be revealing himself at some point today. Part of me didn't want to see him again so soon after our last meeting. Well, whatever you decide to do, I can make myself available if you wanted the company. I whined, quickly turning to him. Why? Because we're friends. But I said something horrible to you, and you didn't get to sleep, and then you had to put up with Orlando's swimming lesson, and... He placed his other hand on my shoulder and flashed me a smile. Dave, it's all right. I'm sorry, Sal. I know. I didn't do it just to be mean, and Dean talked it out with me, so no harm done. Oh. I eased my hand away, and he nodded to me, continuing on inside. My stomach rumbled a little, figuring that it was time for breakfast. Taking one last look around, I sighed. Today would be better, uh, or at least today would be better, or at least I hope so. When I walked into the dining room, I felt everyone look up, not quite staring, but it felt as if they were. With so much attention on me, I shuffled along the length of the table and into the kitchen, leaving them behind. Rushing over to the kitchen sink, I grabbed a glass and grabbed some water, gulping it down while clenching my chest. It helped a little, but it wasn't nearly as good as the hot brew that I had expected to come in here for. Bracing myself on the sink, I caught the sight of movement just off to the side, shrinking without having realized I had company. Oh. My hand went to my wrist, remembering the last time I spoke to Benson in the kitchen, although he didn't seem to react when I did so. My boy, you're looking worse for wear. Is it that obvious? I'd say you're making no effort to even hide it. He strode closer around me to the coffee machine and started to brew some coffee. Coffee? For Oswin? No, my boy. You're in no state to prepare this yourself. That's cute. Every chance you'd potentially spill it. Rather, take a seat and I'll bring it to you. Shuffling along, I took a seat at one of the stools about the kitchen, resting against the countertop while I watched Benson work. Thank you, Benson. My, this is a departure from the other morning. Sorry. Now, Dave, we all have our moments of weakness. Granted, the apology is appreciated. I don't quite like being accosted within the home in which I reside. He carefully placed a cup of coffee in front of me and took it graciously. And I took it graciously. The moment I started to drink, I started to feel a little better. Thank you. Now then, how did last night go? Terribly, actually. It's just... my hand went to my neck, the sting of where he had injected lingering, if only in my memory. I got tricked. Tricked, my boy? Yeah, I was talking to his rat before he injected something into my neck. I could see Benson's jaws clenched, clearly not happy about what I had said. My boy, what did he inject you with? Did he ask before he did it? No, he snuck up behind me and jabbed me with a saline solution, I think. Benson rubbed his temple, grumbling. I swear, I taught him better than that. Taught him better? What? He shouldn't be injecting anything into anyone without consent, Dave, let alone treating guests as test subjects for his curiosity. You almost sound like his, father? Well, I suppose I do fill that role. I hate to speak bad of the former master of the house, but he was severely lacking in parental qualifications. Both him and his wife, frankly. Oh, I didn't know. It's an explanation, but it's not an excuse for what he did. I shall be discussing this with him later. I nodded slowly, going back to my coffee. Forgive me for asking, but... what did you make of his rat? What did I make of it? The whole thing was kind of odd, but I've never spoken to a rat before. Not one like that, anyway. That's one way to put it. Frankly, I can't say I'm a fan, but the rat keeps him happy. How bad could a rat be? He sighed out, shaking his head. In truth, not all that bad, but it's more like I don't like, shall we say, its attitude. His accent is funny too. Quite. Finishing my coffee, I took a cup over to the sink and started to rinse it off before noticing Benson's eyes trained on me. Oh, should I not be washing my cup? No, that's fine. It's more, Curiosity. What are you intended to do with your day, all things considered? I don't really know. Then, if I may be so bold, perhaps being cooped up in the house is playing to your detriment. You mean to take a walk? I did that the other day. Well, yes, but all things considering, the mountain air might do you some good, far away from the things that seem to be troubling you. The Vault, Oswin? Those, plus the people in the other room. Friends they be, but your investment in them is causing you to break. I grumble, hearing him give the same line as he did last time. I won't break. Good heavens, my boy. Trust that I know it when I see it, but you're being mighty pig-headed. That comment made me do a double take, and he continued as if I hadn't noticed. Let yourself recover. Everyone will be here upon your return, and I can ensure their safety, even from Oswin. You're sure? Just let the others know where you're going, so that they won't be worried. And I'll handle the rest. My expression must have hinted that I still wasn't certain. What's the matter? After last night, it's a matter of trust. Right. How do I know that you're not going to do something to my friends while I'm gone? What if I'm not around to save them? Dave, it's this very thinking that's taxing your sanity. Believe me, my boy, while it is a long time since I've had a contract, making people disappear isn't as hard as it seems. I would have done it already if I wanted to. Forgive me, that was perhaps not the most tactful thing to say. It's been a while since I've had to address anyone other than a fairly large child. Shooting him a wry look, I fidget on the spot. It's fine, really. If you are to leave the house, I shall promise to keep them safe in your stead. Even from Oswin? Even from Oswin. Everyone? After I'd readied myself, I had headed into the kitchen to let the others know what I was doing. The only problem was that not everyone was still here. Oh. Dean and Haas looked at one another before turning back to me. Dave, what's going on? I wanted to tell everyone that I was going to go for a walk. Again? Yeah, I figured I needed to go out of the house and just stay away from it for a bit, get some fresh air. Dean scratched his chin. He stayed quiet and just nodded slowly, seemingly understanding. Well, stay safe, I suppose. I'm just thankful that you're at least telling someone this time. I looked between the two of them, suddenly unsure if I should be leaving. Should I go tell the others? No, it's all right. I'll let them know. Oh, okay. Then I guess I'll be going. Dean stepped forward and put a hand on my shoulder, flashing me a quick smile. Stay safe. Then, after lingering a moment, he turned around and left. I looked to Haas, who almost seemed just as eager to go. See you when you get back. Just like that, Haas left after Dean. Maybe they were off to do something together, but who knows? Everyone else was already doing things, and whatever they were, it didn't include me. I wandered out to the front door and looked out to the grounds that's sprawled out before the house, a long stretch of grass with the driveway disappearing down a ways through the trees. I'd been down that way before. Not all that way, but maybe that was somewhere I could go. I'd slept most of the way on the bus, after all. Maybe it was time I checked out what was at the other end of the driveway, for real. The main selling point was that I was looking to avoid everyone for a bit. I'd be the least likely place for people to go. As I wandered down the driveway, I had my hands in my pockets, and I let my mind wander. It was nice outside, peaceful, so all that was left was to find a way to resolve my feelings. Ty. There was a tightness in my chest whenever I thought of him now, something that was different from when we used to just hang out. Back then, it was just nice, different from hanging out with Orlando, different from Roswell, different from Dean or Haas. And now, the feeling was more intense, almost like, do I love Ty? The revelation was enough to make me stop and look around the woods. Of course I loved Ty. He was like a brother, but was I in love with him? There was a dull throb that came after me voicing it out loud. It helped somewhat, but the feeling was only replaced with something else. You're not gay, but you date me, so what does that mean? Then my thoughts turned to how he had said that if I wanted to have sex, I'd just need to ask. But at the same time, anytime we kissed, he had come up. He had, anytime kissing had come up, he'd shut down. And thinking of shutting down reminded me of yesterday. Sighing out, I continued my trek down the main road. Ty wasn't my boyfriend, but if he was maybe that wouldn't be so bad. We basically were already, right? The only thing would be breaking the news to Dean. Soon enough, I hit the main road, the mountains opening up in front of me. I had to shield my eyes from the light, having been walking in the shade for most of the trek down. Wow. We were much higher than I realized, with the mountains and forests rolling out as far as I could see. As I stood there, looking down at the drop-off on the other side of on the road, I wondered how often people came this way. When I looked down to the road, I wondered just how far away the next house was. With how it was wound around the corner, it was hard to say just how long this road was. Which, given I had all the time in the world, I wondered down in realizing that this road only led to the mansion and nothing else. Sure enough, the road continued to wind around the mountains, across a bridge, and out of sight, with no other houses in view. If I wanted to go home, the road back was long. I could just continue walking down this road and never look back, and I'd be done with everything involving everyone dying. But that's just not how I worked. The thought that one of us was marked for death lingered deep in the back of my mind, despite me not knowing for sure who it was. Just give up, Dave. Let what happens happen. Let them die. As I stood in the middle of the road, my eyes wandered over to the cliff to my right, rising high before plateauing somewhat higher up where yet more trees sat. Then over the other side of the road, where a river occasionally peered out from behind the trees a long way down. Everything behind me back at the mansion was its own little world when I wanted to escape. Edging closer to the edge of the road, I wondered for a second what would happen if I were to just fall off then and there. I wondered what it'd be like to die, and if I'd get to see Dad again. I wondered what Mom would think, or what she'd do, or if she'd even notice. All it'd take would be just to one step and then another towards the edge of the road and peering over the edge. Staring down at the trees below made me feel lightheaded, and I quickly stepped away. I can't. Falling back on my rear, I buried my face in my hands, ashamed and embarrassed. Yet I still couldn't cry. Even facing my own death wasn't enough to set me off. Instead, I just wailed and whined into the open air. I got up and just yelled, angry, confused, upset. I didn't care. Hours passed before I started to head back up the driveway, my throat sore. Each step I took back towards the house made me think if the others had been listening, if they'd even heard at all. What if they did? If they cared? The sounds of a twig snapping caused me to stop. Quickly looking around, I tried to place where the sound came from. Who's there? There was nothing but silence as my reply But I stood there and waited. My eyes darted, and the place expecting to see something, anything, and I was about to start walking again when I heard another snap somewhere nearby. Hello? I spun around and started to back up. If this was one of my friends, they'd have answered. The next thing I did was run as fast as my legs could carry me back to the house. I didn't know how long I'd been running for, but I started to slow down further up the driveway. Listening, I tried to figure out if I was being followed or if whatever had been in the woods was still nearby. What was that? I leaned up against a tree to catch my breath, occasionally looking over my shoulder. Nothing as far as I could tell. Continuing on, I got back to the manor. And as I got closer, I saw Benson standing outside the front door, looking out the grounds. Back from your walk, I see. Did it help? I didn't respond to him right away, looking over my shoulder, scanning the tree line. What's the matter? I think someone was out there with me. That should be impossible. The manor and its grounds are private property, my boy. Well, yeah, I heard something out there. Benson stepped closer, putting a hand on my shoulder before continuing just past me to look the way I'd come. What did you hear? I was heading back to the manor and twigs snapped. Benson eased off slightly, but he still seemed tense, searching the trees one last time before turning back to me. Well, perhaps it's best if you stay out of the woods for the rest of the day, just in case. Really? It can't be. The words were only half out of my mouth before I noticed the look he was giving me, the slight quirk in his brow as if questioning how genuine I was being. Okay, fair enough. I went to head inside before he spoke again, making me stop and return his confused look. I hope your yelling helped settle yourself, Dave. Although I'd hazard your friends are likely going to ask about that. Where are they? Benson played with his mustache, thinking it over. You had gone on a walk yourself, so they decided to head out too, granted, as a group. Oh. I forced a smile, although it was only emphasized how lonely I felt. Are you concerned for your friends? They should be fine together, but if you wish, I could warn them by heading into the forest myself. No, it's all right. They deserve to have some fun together, without me. Turning away from Benson, I headed inside. When I got to my room, I stripped down and got under the covers, willing myself to sleep. The longer I'd slept, the longer I didn't have to consciously think about everything going wrong. Or at least that's what I told myself. If I could stay asleep forever, maybe that'd just be better than being here in this mansion. Dave? I could hear him, clear as anything. The best boy. When I opened my eyes, there he was. There he is. Dad. I knew it was a dream. I knew that he wasn't real. Or even there. But it was so clear and so real, I wanted to believe that if I reached out, I'd be able to feel him. Hey, sport. What's got you down? Nothing. Nothing's got me down. Really? Don't buy that for a second, champ. Your nose is doing that scrunchy thing. Mine does. He made a show of touching his own nose before reaching out to mine, where he would have touched. Instead, I flinched away. Oh, come on, Dave. What's wrong? Dad, I miss you. I want you here. I don't want to be alone and everyone's dying, and I'm scared. I'm really scared that I'm not normal. Why haven't I cried, Dad? Why? Sport, hey now. I wanted to cry again. I really did, but instead my face just sort of scrunched up painfully instead. You're allowed to cry. You know that, right? I want to, but you can't. Why? I don't know. I could feel myself tugging at the fur on my arms. Maybe something I was doing even while asleep, if it was hard to say. The faintest sound of a siren echoed somewhere in the distance, muffled as if I were hearing it from behind many walls and with headphones on. Flashes of red and blue started to stain what I was seeing, alternating between the two until it was all I could see. I cowered whenever I thought of that night, more so than the funeral, or even everything else that happened after. That was the night that changed everything for me. When I woke up, it was late, having slept most of the day away. Even with the amount of sleep I'd just finished, I was still tired, not physically from my walk, but something else. Seeing it was time for dinner, I left my room, and the moment I got down the stairs, I could hear the others in the dining room. They sounded happy, which was good, enough for me to want to gravitate towards the dining room for a peek. A lot of them were laughing and grinning at Orlando, who seemed flustered about something, his mane a mess. Hey guys. Oh, hello Dave. How'd your day turn out? It went okay. I grimaced, and he nodded slowly, looking about to the others. Benson told me you went out into the woods, maybe? Yeah, we figured if you went out for a walk, then we should go on one too. Not to abandon you, but you were gone long before we decided to go out, too. Otherwise, I guess we would have gone together. Yeah, okay. My voice sounded hollow, and I held my mouth slightly open in a dazed smile, turning to Roswell, who'd been standing by Orlando quietly. What's wrong, Dave? Nothing. I'm just tired. Oh, all right. Well, hopefully you sleep well tonight. I give a half-hearted chuckle in reply, nodding. Hopefully. Certain I was going to be pulled up on it. Yeah. I closed my eyes and sighed out, straightening my back, but it never happened, likely because of the familiar, distracted clacking of shoes on the tile that echoed in from the foyer. Good evening, everyone. Roswell seemed to be eyeing Benson suspiciously, sneaking a glance at each of us before turning his attention back to the otter. Perhaps it was how Benson was standing by the door that clued me in to what was about to happen. Or that, or the heavy footfall in the foyer getting louder as they approached. Each of my friends looked at one another confused. They could hear it too, but everyone that should have been in the house was present in the room. Sure enough, the time had come. Oswin stood in the doorway of the dining room, looking to each of us in turn. May I introduce the master of the house? It's unneeded, but thank you, Benson. My name is Oswin Hammond. Haas was the first to move, pointing at Oswin briefly. Roswell, your dad is here. Oswin shook his head, eyeing Haas carefully. No, my boy. Oh, no, boy. I thought that. I've been reading too much of Benson's dialogue. Okay, well, better question. Why are you here? It's my house, so naturally I'd be here, no? Roswell's jaw was clenched, seemingly none too happy about Oswin showing up. I knew something was up. Something wasn't making much sense unless there was someone else here, but still. If you're going to say something, Roswell, say it. Why are you here if we're staying here for a month? I thought we had it to ourselves. Well, sorry to disappoint your expectations. That I'd be willing to let 6 relative strangers stay in my house without me being around. Oswin's attention turned to me, sizing me up, but his attention was taken again by Roswell speaking up again. Then if you've been around this whole time, Benson knew, and when we were all looking for the gun, you didn't say anything? Of course not. But why? Once more, Oswin looked at me, maybe trying to figure out how much I'd told my friends. Put simply, I'm a private man. You don't live on a somewhat private mountain in a mansion where parts of it is hidden behind secret doors if you're if you typically enjoy company. Wait, hidden rooms? They exist? Orlando trembled at the idea, eyes darting between Roswell and Oswin. Mr. Noble, you know full aware why those things exist. I'd have thought you'd have learned that firsthand from your father by now. Hidden rooms work sort of like bank vaults, right? Part of me felt racist thinking that dragons would, of course, know better, and it was strange that Orlando just didn't know. Oh my god. Been talking for a lot already. Okay. You know my dad? I've never knew what to, like, voice to give to, like, Orlando. I don't know. Whatever. Among other things, if you were to stay here, why wouldn't I want to know about about those under my roof? It's hard to get background checks on people if you know who to ask or where to ask. Remember, 4 of you just finished school, so public records are fairly easy to come across. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've come by to make myself something to drink, and I'll let you go about your business. Oswin wandered past me, patting me on the shoulder as he made his way into the kitchen with Benson at his heels. Damn, well that's something. Huh? If this is his house, I guess him being here makes sense. I know I'd feel more comfortable with strangers being in my house if I was around. They're guests, Dean, not strangers. More importantly, we're guests. Assuming Roswell got permission. Oh, he did. I turned to Roswell to check, but noticing him stomping off towards the kitchen, he looked annoyed and focused, ignoring the conversation going on. I followed behind him while the others discussed the morality of secretly sharing your house with guests without telling them you're still there. Why are you still here? Oswin had a mug while Benson stood stiff next to the coffee machine. Roswell, meanwhile, was aggressively poking the older boar in the stomach. You mean my house? Benson cleared his throat, and I figured it was to alert the other two that I was in the kitchen. Not that they seemed to pay himself any mind. Mom and Dad said that you'd be off doing something else, so we wouldn't have parental supervision. But he's not your dad, right? Dave, what are you? He's been here for a few moments, Master Roswell, despite my efforts to try and clue you both into the subtly. I don't mind if Dave is here. After all, he hands his mug over to Benson while he spoke, looking over me before turning back to his butler. He's a guest. Oh, and make that 3 sugars, Benson. Okay, fine, Dave is here, but answer my question. While Benson is good at keeping things in order behind the scenes, the manor is big enough for everyone to share with no problem. After all, you didn't know I was here until I revealed myself. You're still not answering the question. Maybe he just doesn't want us to set the house on fire while he's gone. Or even while I'm in it, in all honesty. But I'm here because I want to be, and as is my right to be. I trust you have no issue with this, Roswell huffed, folding his arms briefly in defiance before going to retrieving a mug himself. And you're sure you're not related? Oswin looked to me carefully before looking to Roswell, who was heaping sugar into his mug. I'm sure. Come on, Dave. I I know my own parents. And besides, we live next to each other. Do you think I'd suddenly be living in a mansion otherwise? Not an uncle or anything? Dave, you know why. That's... He stopped mid-sentence, with Roswell turning suddenly from dumping sugar into his mug. And why would Dave know that? Not an uncle or anything? Dave, you know why, and that's... Okay. Well... I suppose the cat is out of the bag now. What is this habit of not answering my question? Perhaps if you had some modicum or yeah, whatever, I'd be more willing to entertain them. But I feel an inquisitive mind such as yours warrants something beyond a simple explanation. Finish making your coffee and we'll round up everyone, as I'm not explaining this more than once. Retrieving his coffee from Benson, Oswin walked back into their dining room, leaving us behind. Did you wish for a cup as well, Master Dave? Sure. After serving Roswell his cup, although with a raised brow from how much of said mug was sugar in it, he made one for me, and all of us followed into Oswin's wake. Whatever. Why? Why should we go anywhere? He's been in the dining room for a few moments, and already it seems as though the mood was tense. Upon spotting the rest of us, he nodded and gestured for everyone to follow. All right, everyone's here, so let's get going. But you haven't explained why we should be going anywhere. Then don't come. I'm sure Haas can show you the library in his own time. Wait, what? But Oswin turned away from them, walking out the dining room, expecting us to follow. Haas followed soon after, leaving Orlando looking about the room, confused on if he should follow as well. Dean and Sal shrugged along next, with Tyson close behind, looking wary. We have not heard a word from Tyson today. Come on. This is the Tyson route. I want the boy. Is it... What's going on? I guess he'll explain it when we get there. Whatever. I botched that line, but who the fuck cares? Orlando nodded gently to himself, and we followed behind the rest of the group up the stairs towards the conservatory. He had mentioned the library, and without even thinking, I didn't even stop to question where he was going. Sal noticed, having turned to head off to the museum instead, but doubled back to catch up with Dean upon realizing that's not where we were headed. Ah, here we are. Everyone here? Good. I'm not going to show you this more than once, so pay attention. Without thinking about it, he pulled the 2 books needed to open the passage that led to the library. With a gentle push of the bookcase slid aside, revealing the dark corridor behind it. Now, some of you are already familiar with this corridor, no? I looked to Haas, who seemed to be focusing intently on the corridor rather than checking to see if anyone was looking at him. Bah, it doesn't matter. The observant of you may have noticed that there was something off about the layout of the house, given where you could and could not get to just from looking at the outside. Is it really that noticeable? Osmond just grunted, looking over to me. It felt different talking to him like this out in the open somehow. I just couldn't place it. I have a question. Yes, what is it? You mentioned a library, but isn't it back there? I understand where you are coming to that conclusion, but I assure you, compared to the room beyond this passage, the library pales in comparison. Without waiting a moment longer, we wandered into the corridor, leaving us behind. He wandered into it. Benson followed quickly behind him, eyes forward as if resting upon it. Yeah, there. Roswell stepped forward, quickly in Oswin's wake, looking back the corridor. What's wrong, Roswell? It's not just me, right? there's something odd going on. How he appeared out of nowhere. In a daze, Haas continued down the corridor after Oswin, running his hands along the wall to guide him forward. Well, he does live here, right? Yes, but there's how he appeared. Why now? Why is Haas freaking out? It's not adding up. I noticed Tyson stepping forward, looking down the darkness after Haas. Well, I don't trust him. Fuck letting Top Cat getting in trouble going alone. Top Cat? You mean Haas? Ty grunt, shooting me a quick look before going on ahead. Haas and Tyson have been getting along, getting closer slowly. I don't know when the nickname started, but it's something. I'm just glad I didn't get lumped in with Dean. Where are we going? I was going to follow the others. What do you make of this, Dean? He hasn't done anything wrong, so I'm not going to judge. Sal and Ross exchanged a look before turning back to Dean. What? Nothing. Come on, Dean. Patting Dean on the back, Sal led Dean into the darkness, leaving just Roswell, Orlando, and me behind. So, he fidgeted with his hands, looking between us in the corridor. Everyone else had gone down. Are we going to follow as well? Probably. We don't have much of a choice, do we? Everyone else has already gone on already. Roswell took Orlando by the hand and dragging him through into the dark. As their footsteps faded into silence, I was left alone in the conservatory, taking one last look around. I followed behind him. Carefully, I walked the path of the library, wondering how this was going to go. What would the others think about the library and how it'd been hidden this whole time? When I got there, I looked down to the lower floor and saw everyone gathered around the desk, getting in the middle of the room, all except Roswell, who was wandering off to the side with his eyes set on what I'd assume was to be the door leading to the lab. I made my way down to the others, grabbing Oswin's attention. Ah, good. Everyone's here. What the fuck? Why didn't we know about this room? I'd be asking that lion friend of yours, no? What? Once upon a time, Mr. Warner here came to the house and discovered this room, and he was preparing for something I don't really care about. But when you arrived, he alone knew of its existence. Hey, that's not fair. Am I lying? Well, no, but... He sighed out, rubbing his head. Okay, fine. Yeah, I've been to this house before and knew about the library, but didn't mean to really hide it from anyone. Why'd you come here, anyway? An old acting gig that didn't pan out. It doesn't matter. Agreed. It doesn't matter. But some days ago, Haas brought Dave here. That's how your hyena friend and I spoke, at least. Wait, Dave? You've spoken to this guy before? At least I knew why you wanted to know about the library now. Then came the nervous chuckle, and I backed up a little. No, wait. Why are you talking to him, Dave? Before I could answer, Oswin cut in, clearing his throat. His interactions with the Vault piqued my interest, not to mention his desperation to keep everyone alive, including Benson. So I invited him here for us to have a little more private chat about things. You couldn't talk to us more about it, Dave? Huh. I think I read that that's Route B, is if you reveal... Like, the difference between Route A and B is that if you revealed Oswin earlier. So, I don't know. Don't know if I wonder how different that route is. I'm going to assume that, like, routes like A, B, C, D, and E aren't too divergent from one another. Since you already, like, on top of that, you already, well, like, besides, like, the good, bad timeline thing. Because you already have the 6 routes with your route partner And that feels like a lot, because you have like 6 routes with your partners, and then there are 4 paths, 4 to 5 paths, and I'm like, that's a lot. But whatever. I know this is an odd place to stop the part, but I think I'm going to. Yeah. Because we've already been recording for an hour, so. Next part, we'll continue this conversation.